So what we have is approval of minutes, I'm sorry, roll call.
Okay.
And then approval of minutes and then public comments. And then we'll be into the meeting and discussion of proposed code language.
Okay. Call the meeting to order at 4:04 p.m. And first off, we'll have roll call.
Kim, you want to do that? I'm here.
And Paul Aziz.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
And I think that's everybody. I don't know if you heard Kelly say that Melissa Egan is trying to connect in, so she's resent the Zoom link and hopefully she will be joining us here in just a minute.
Okay. All right. So the next step would be the approval of the previous minutes. Were there any corrections or additions?
I didn't have any. I don't see any in the room.
Okay. Seeing none, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
When do you want to make the motion? Thank you. You want a second? Okay.
It's been moved and
Me
seconded to
Yes.
approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? I can't see, but I didn't hear anybody, so I'll assume that was all okay. Okay, and then next up, I guess, are we moving over to Kim then? Is that to go over the regulations? Or what is next?
Actually have public comments.
We have public
Oh, public
comment.
comment. Okay. Is there any public there?
We do have members of the public here. I don't know, we don't have any cards filled out, so I don't know if anybody wants to speak.
Okay.
I'm not seeing anybody coming to the microphone. Yes? You need to come and sit at the microphone to make sure it's on the push button. It should have a red light. And if you could start with stating your name, please.
I can't hear it all.
Hi, my name is Carol Hollingsworth, and I work for the Lebanon Salvation Army, helping clients here in town. And we have bell ringers out ringing bells, and that's how we have the money in order to help people. I'm here because there's been a real problem with more and more people seeming to end up homeless. And it's getting to the point where we've got seniors living in their cars. And it's breaking my heart to think that we're not doing something about it. Something needs to change. And it's happening every day, more and more. I have a homeless guy who has come to me, and he lost his home. It was his parents' home, and he lost it. And his cats are there, and he can't go back to the property to get his cats. And I mean, that's just like the tip of the iceberg as far as the stuff that's going on. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cry, but it's heartbreaking to me. And we know that the people that are homeless have to move their cars. So we make sure that they have car insurance and make sure that they have a valid driver's license. And we give them gas so that they can move their cars. Some of those people are coming on a weekly basis. and we're doing small vouchers because otherwise we'll run out of money. All of our money comes from the bell ringing and we didn't bring in as much. So here we are, $20 a week with some of these people so that they can move their car because that's what they're living in. And if they lose their car, if their car gets towed, then what can I say? I mean, we're trying to do what we can, but what we really need is we need someone who is willing to come alongside and make sure, because some of these people, they need a hand up, not just a hand out. And sometimes I feel like that's what we're doing with just giving them the gas voucher so that they can at least move their car, so they at least have a place to sleep. We don't want to be doing handouts. We want to help them up. So that's why I came today.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Carol? Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, and I help with rent, electricity, water bills and stuff like that. I mean, people that are in homes, trying to keep them to keep in their homes, but yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sarah Jameson from St. Martin's Episcopal Church, and we have a lot of services that we offer for homeless people. During COVID, we actually did let people park overnight in our church parking lot. We provided a porta potty for them because, of course, there was no place open for them to use the bathroom, but that wasn't an ideal arrangement, but it was something that we did. And then when COVID was over, then we asked them to leave. But we have breakfast 3 times a week for people, and we have many services that we try to either provide. We do give gas cards. We try to connect people to OHP for their health plan, et cetera. I mean, we had vaccine clinics from the health department there. We have food boxes that the health department arranged for. We've had the medical students from the medical school come and give health checks with blood pressure, blood glucose, foot exams, foot washing, toenail cutting, socks. Give out a lot of socks, give out a lot of toilet paper, wipes, and so on. So what we need, I think, is this is what I wrote to Denise about, I don't know, some months ago, so I'll try to remember what I said. It would be ideal if we could have a designated parking area where cars could park that had a porta potty, that had running water, that had electricity for people to plug in their phones so they can stay connected to their doctor appointments and so on, that had dumpsters, that had rules about who could be there, no fires, et cetera. This, I think, would be a benefit to lots of people. The people wouldn't have to move their cars. The police could find anybody they wanted because they'd be there. The businesses would love it because cars would be out of their parking lots. The residential people would love it because the cars would be off the streets. And people would have the Lynx bus would know where to come to pick people up, to take them to their appointments or to take them shopping, et cetera. So this is not the only thing, but this would be one thing. People come to church and with their cars, and then they have to disperse. I could find them if I needed to find them for something. Hey, you got some mail today. We let them have mail delivered to the church. So, hey, you got some mail today. It looks important. It's your ballot. I can bring it to you. This is what we need. It needs to be a safe place with some kind of security arranged for, because obviously there's ladies in the car that, want to be safe and don't want to have their doors banged on in the middle of the night. And I don't know where this place might be, but that would be one benefit to the city. It would be controlled. Could be tidy and neat. And as for people who don't have cars, as you probably know, if you drive around William Street and Milton Street and see our church, there's people who don't have cars who are with shopping carts and are camping on our lawns sometimes. And we try to, Jesus told us to feed the poor and take care of the sick and the hungry. So this is what we do. But on the other hand, we want to be a good neighbor in our neighborhood, and we don't want the place to look trashy. But it's hard with some of our people who are, of course, substance abusers and or have mental issues or behavioral issues to know how to be tidy. You know, it's all very well for me to say, gee, didn't your mother ever tell you to pick up your cigarette butts? And then I think, well, maybe you didn't have a mother. Or maybe your mother also put down cigarette butts and you never knew that this was really not a cool idea to do that. And so I'm trying to help people understand how to be respectful when they come in. We have gotten a grant, which we're waiting for the money to put in a computer kiosk in the church where people can then access services to which they are eligible that they don't know how to get to. Maybe they don't have a phone, or the phone got stolen or doesn't work anymore, they're out of minutes, and they need to know about their doctor appointment, they need to get their prescriptions refilled, they need to sign up for housing and check where they are on the housing list, they need to know if they have an appointment. We give bus tickets so people can get to Albany on the bus so they can go to the DMV and, you know, renew their driver license. And we try to help them move up and keep learning new, better behavioral habits. But if we had a designated area for people with cars and or tents, you know, whatever, we could say, I'll take you there, or the bus will take you there, the senior bus or the Lynx bus. And it would be such a benefit to people. I think it would benefit the people in need, but also all the rest of us, because we would know, hey, you can go and here's a place where you can go. Now, I know that Crossroads Community is doing a lot of work too, and I don't know if they have somebody here today, but they're talking about setting up a, what did he call it? Community Services Center, and they're looking at a couple buildings to acquire in the downtown area, which would be great. We need all the services we can get. And so that would be another thing that could work together with that. So I would just like to encourage, I'll also say that I'm on the Episcopal Diocese of Oregon Housing Crisis Working Group. And we're working with the diocese to find out what are all the churches doing. Different churches do different things. Some have tiny houses, like I think in Springfield and so on, and try to find out what the churches are doing and what can we do to help, because that's what Jesus said we should do. So that's what we're trying to do. And we're trying to find out all the different ways that we could do it. One thing we might be able to do is that, as St. Martin's has a big parking lot and we have a big grassy field, we could, for example, build tiny houses if that were allowed by the Lebanon Council, which I don't think it is, or at least one time when someone looked into it. But that's something that the diocese could afford to pay for, not our church, because we're just a small church and we don't have tons of money, but the diocese has money and they could invest in our land, which is just, I mean, it's a nice field, but it's not being used for anything, and it could have tiny housing. We have a parking lot right there. It would be something that would benefit a lot of people. Maybe the way at Crossroads, it's transitional housing. So you help people learn how to get a job, learn how to budget their money, learn how to then move into their own apartment, move out into the world for the ones that are actually able to do that. Some of our people don't even know what day it is when they show up. So they're not really ready to have a job yet. They need to learn a lot more things. So I appreciate your letting me say some things. The police department have been wonderful. They've come down and helped us help people. Really appreciate the work that they've done with us. It's a fine line. We want to embrace everybody, but we can't be overrun at the same time. And so we try to do what we can. So thank you. And anytime you want to come and see what we do, you're more than welcome. Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 to 12, we have breakfast. And we have lots of people coming in and we try to help them as best we can. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
We have someone else coming to the mic.
Okay.
I gotta get my last name or just my first.
First and last, yeah.
Red light on means the mic is on.
Okay. My name is Adam Real. I used to be a member of Lebanon for a long time. I was homeless. I left and went to Sweet Home, and things got bad for me up there, but I got my biggest supports now. From my experience with being homeless, I didn't believe I could be a proper member of society. I have a record. I have a lot of things that was against me. And if it wasn't for the FAC, the Lynn County Street Outreach, and my church up in Sweet Home, helping me change and believe that I could be a better person. I almost lost my life 20 months ago. And the FAC came out to where I was at, and they saved my life and helped me change my ways. So as a lot of people have been saying, yes, some choose to be homeless, but somebody like me that wanted to rise above and do better, there are those that need that help to believe that they can be somebody better other than the drugs, other than a criminal. And if it wasn't for the people that helped change my life and save my life, people need to know that they are worth something and that they have their life is valuable. So I just wanted to come and tell you guys, if it wasn't for those people helping me believe, and some people going out and talking to them and telling them that they are worth something, you know, having a place to go to where they can get the transitional help that they need, you know, some kind of help, you know, to believe that they're a better person and that their lives matter. That's what we need to see more of in the community. I can't tell you in the city of Lebanon alone how much I have seen people put the homeless down, degrade the homeless. Yes, a lot of them don't know how to, like the lady before me said, don't know how to take care of their stuff or pick up after themselves. It's a process to learn how to do things like that, because a lot of them feel that they're trash, and so why not live in trash? I'm just being honest. You know, I've been there, done that, and now I have a job. I have almost 20 months in recovery, and I look at me. I had nothing, and now I have the whole world ahead of me. So thank you for listening to me. Hopefully this helps.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing anybody else coming forward. One more.
Okay. Now we move on to,
Oh, I'm sorry, Paul. We have one more who's coming.
oh, okay.
My name is Nora. I don't actually live in Lebanon. I live in Sweet Home. I've been working with FAC over there doing outreach to the homeless for quite some time. And I have one story about one of our clients that I would like to tell you so you can have an idea what a little bit of help and even somewhere stable to be every day, what a difference it can make. We have one lady who's been homeless as long as I've been helping them, and for quite a bit longer, I'm pretty sure. Last week, I was having a conversation with her, and we were talking about the shelter that's going in Sweet Home when it got open, and she told me that she feels like she's finally going to have a home, even though it may be a little Conestoga hut in a homeless camp. This is going to be her home. And she asked me if I would help her learn how to fill out job applications and different things, because now she's going to have a home, and now she believes that she can turn her life around and become a positive member of society just on that one little thing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carol Davies. I'm the director of COAT, the Street Outreach Program in Albany. And I came here today to encourage you all to look at your unhoused residents and help them. Our street outreach program goes out 4 days a week. We get inundated with people, especially elderly people, disabled people, families. Um, We are full at both shelters. It's really a tough situation out there. I would like to encourage you all to have some sort of a program here in Lebanon too. And that being said, I would be happy to help you set something up and get you on your way to having some type of a program. The other hat that I wear is I am Vice President of Creating Housing Coalition. We are building a tiny home village of permanent homes in Albany. We hope to start construction early next year. So, looking ahead, being progressive and thinking of how you can help solve the issue of what to do with people who can't afford to live here. I would also be really happy to talk to you all. Our group, Creating Housing, could arrange a meeting with you all so we can tell you what we're doing. As I said, it's a great concept, and I think that it would also work well in Lebanon. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not seeing anybody else come forward, Paul, so I think we can turn it over to Kim to sum
Okay.
up the code language.
All right, Kim, go ahead.
I'll pull it closer too.
Closer. There. Is that okay?
Yes.
So for our discussion is, one is our ad hoc committee. Whoops, sorry. It's reading the wrong one. We wanted to go over the code language for 12.14, which is a designation and regulation of public sleeping areas. You want me to read through the whole thing? I mean,
I think, can you
Everybody-
sum up?
yeah, does everybody here have their copy?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So we have the definitions, and then under the 12.14.30 is public access to public parks and designated sleeping areas. Public parks, we were looking at establishing the municipal code and for posting of the parks of what it means to sit, lie, and sleep with the protection of the elements in Lebanon, public parks. And for designated campsites and areas marked as reserved and excluding recreational areas, restroom facilities and gazebos and picnic shelters. I'm sorry, that was for the public parks. And the designated sleeping areas, persons may sleep with protection from the elements in designated sleeping areas, which is what we wanted to establish with the city council resolution. With the hours, this would be the change of the hours between 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. would be the designated sleeping areas. The designated sleeping areas shall be continuously signed with the boundary of the area that may be utilized, the hours of use, and may include reasonable rules for use of the designated sleeping area.
Kim? Excuse me.
Yes.
On the public parks part, should we include trails in that?
I may have skipped over that. Sorry.
I didn't
Is it in
see
there?
it.
It's in there.
Yeah, it's in there. I may have just, I was skimming over it.
Okay.
Um,
Definition of recreation areas.
ah,
Right.
Yep, up
Yeah.
above. The recreation area is public park dedicated to
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
playgrounds, sports fields, garden, walking trails, bike paths.
Okay. I was looking for it down in A. Okay. Thank you.
And then under public parks and designated sleeping areas, 1214.50. The following provides the manner in which persons may use public parks and designated sleeping areas for protection from the elements. Under A, location would be a clear path of minimum 36 inches in width shall be continuously maintained for pedestrian accessibility. And basically what we want for that is just so sidewalks and pathways are not being blocked, so other people can use them. All vehicular access points, driveways, and labeled emergency access areas within the public park or designated sleeping areas shall remain clear of all personal property and individuals seeking protection from the elements. We understand there's going to be cars, however, having all of their belongings outside of the cars is what we want to prohibit from happening. Temporary structures and materials may be used or erected within the public parks or designated sleeping areas during the allowed time periods, subject to the following. Temporary structures and materials shall not be tied to secure or staked or anchored or propped up against any permanent structures or ground located on the adjacent to the public park or designated sleeping areas. We know this because it can cause problems, such as water lines getting hit or sprinkler systems. Temporary structures and materials and all property shall be removed from the public park or designated sleeping area during times which the area is not designated for use under this chapter. Any property that remains within the public park or designated sleeping area during periods of the time not compliant with the section 12.14.30 of this chapter will be considered abandoned and handled within compliance of state law. Temporary structures and materials shall not be used or erected in a manner which would constitute a danger or obstruct designated walkways, driveways, or points of emergency access to adjacent properties. No person shall within any public park or designated sleeping area build, light, or maintaining any fire except as may be allowed in 12.12.70, which is like a gas.
Like a propane or a gas cooking
Yeah, it
stove
just
kind
can't
of a
be,
thing.
it can't be an
Not-
open flame. Restrooms and hand washing stations and trash receptacles may be provided within public parks and designated sleeping areas, but is not guaranteed the facilities will be available during all times which the public park or designated sleeping areas are available for protection from the elements. No person shall obstruct a street, sidewalk, public right-of-way, recreation area, or other public property by sitting, lying, or sleeping, or storing, using, maintaining, or placing personal property in a manner that impedes passage. Sorry, I lost track here.
I think
Okay,
we're talking
two-
about not citing people for violations unless they're engaging in conduct that's prohibited in the section, so.
On section 2 here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they can be if they violate this language in this chapter, but they would have to be notified first by law enforcement that they're violating and then continue that behavior before they would be cited. So not just, I see you there, I'm going to cite you, but
And is there a due process where they would be given something informing them of the clear steps that would lead them being cited for that amount?
that is correct.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we and they would be provided an opportunity to know where they can go, where it's allowable.
Yeah.
I just think it's important for everyone to understand the due process and for some of the.
I can't hear the speaker.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Red light's on?
No.
Okay. plugged in, maybe? Okay.
My concern is that sometimes folks who find themselves in camping situations may not always have the best abilities to really understand what's happening to them in their situation. Sometimes they might have addiction or cognitive issues or other health concerns going on where they might need an advocate or someone working with them to help them really understand that repeating this behavior, and they might have other factors contributing to their behaviors that might be causing them to act out in ways that might not be normally found to be acceptable by someone, by our society. So I just wanted to really have a clear process and have a clear understanding for our local citizens who may find themselves camping, that they really understand why they can't camp and the regulations regarding that before they were fined, and have a process where they can be assisted to understand. I do really support our law enforcement, and I'm really thankful because I know they put a lot of time and effort into helping our homeless citizens in a lot of these situations. But I'm just also trying to look at this from all the different perspectives that I've seen as a case manager in our area for the homeless and a community volunteer quite a long time now in the unhoused community, so.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with you. I mean, it's a very complex issue that we're dealing with. And, you know, there takes a lot of different avenues and a lot of different resources and a lot of different people to help out the situation that we're coming across here. And that's our goal, right? Is to help individuals get to a place rather than get them a citation, or because really what are we doing? We're not necessarily helping the individual, but there comes a time when the behavioral issue is what we're addressing here. And we do have resources out there that we're trying to get people directed towards. And a lot of times, like you're describing, where we're coming into a situation where an individual is not cognitive of what is going on, then we can call upon other resources to come and assist us with that type of an issue, if that makes sense. So citation is our last resort. And that's kind of what the ordinance is building upon or building around, is just that, is trying to safely get individuals to a location that they can sleep rather than us having to deal with it in the law side of things. So that's always going to be the last resort. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's kind of what the coalition was kind of built around, is look at our ordinance, what we currently have, and then try to find a designation for individuals who can go. And I mean, it's kind of the foundation. Obviously, there's more walls that need to be put up around that foundation, but for right now, that's what we have to deal with. Is we need to have them go to a place that is more safe than and a little bit secure than and just randomly out and about. So
Thank you.
hopefully I explained that well.
I think we do have challenges in that we have nobody who's operating a shelter. And that does create some challenges for what can be done in the community. And I think part of what we're hopeful is if we have designated areas, the service providers, some of whom we've heard this afternoon speaking, would at least have designated places where they could hopefully find people who need services, and rather than scattered, that they would be available to get that information about where they can go and how they can get help. So it is the best that we've got without a service provider operating a shelter at this point.
Thank you.
Sure.
Clarification.
And our other chapter was 12.12, which is the parks and public places. And here we were just trying to figure out, well, one, identifying and defining our parks and public places, and the hours, changing the hours, which was from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. So closing the parks down at 10 p.m. to 7 a.m.
I think that was one where we used to say the park was closed from dusk
Dusk
until
to
dawn.
Right.
And dusk to dawn is a it's a futzy term unless you have the app that tells you exactly what time of day dusk occurs every day. So
Right.
wanted to give harder times there to make it clearer for everyone, park access.
Yep. And then with that, I mean, all the others, ordinances are in place, which the alcohol in the parks and public places. Camping in designated city parks, people can go into the city parks during the day and they can stay there. And they can even have, a shelter as long as it's not affixed to anything. But when the park closes, then we have to move them along. And, again, the whole point is then where can they move along to that is safe, which is then, trying to identify another location for them.
Really, chapter 12.12 is just a reorganization of the same language that was there. And then incorporating what used to previously be chapter 12.14. Chapter 12.14 under current code defines park hours and then defines the park exclusion process. What we really tried to do was consolidate park regulations into one chapter and then identify the ability to sleep in public places as a separate chapter. So 12.12 is just clarification of that. The camping language in 12.12 is related to those areas that people can reserve a spot to stay for a designated period of time for a fee and then leave. And that is separate from the ability to sleep, lie, and sit in public places. So it's really code consolidation and putting like items together in the code is 12.12. 12.14 is the meat of what is being considered for meeting compliance with state law and the case law that's come down.
And with 12.14, we're also discussing the locations. We had, if you guys remember, we discussed two separate locations, one being 4. Okay. 4. The one in front of Public Works on Oak Street. We have in front of City Hall.
On the Maple Street side, not the Main Street side.
And then across the parking lot from,
Yeah.
yeah, oh yeah, if you have that, that would be great. Perfect.
So part of what we were trying to look at were city-owned parcels of property. And if you recall, based on time, place, and manner restrictions, there are a number of parcels that got ruled out because they are, for example, a wetland, it's a drainage way, it's along a dangerous highway, along railroad tracks, adjacent to the wastewater treatment plant or a pump station, that make that not an ideal place. And I'll tell you, we have no ideal locations for camping except Gill's Landing, which is an ideal place, and it's already set up for RV camping, so that's in place. So we looked at other sites. This one in front of Public Works, because there is a wide sidewalk here, and then there is space between the sidewalk and the fence for the compound. It's about 12 feet deep. There would be the opportunity to set up a tent or something like that to have shelter overnight, and be out of the public right of way in terms of leaving the sidewalk free. You want to go to the next one? This would be the sidewalk on Maple by City Hall. Again, a very wide sidewalk area, much less kind of green space, but sidewalk abutting the building that could be available. This is a parking lot that is,
It's behind City Hall, behind the old dry cleaners. That's a city-owned parcel.
and I think,
Morley Thomas Law Firm.
yes,
Next to our lovely law firm, yeah.
yes. And I think that is a potential site for car camping. I think we have some concerns about that being a site for tent camping because you do have driveways. Some concerns somebody zips in a car, not knowing that there are tents there. But that's a potential location. And then the fourth site, which is the Holiday gas station at the corner of Park and Oak. And that's a possibility. That's a transit stop location for both Lynx and the Lynn shuttle. There is some modicum of shelter from the overhang. It's not huge, but in terms of a place where you could put up a tent and be a little more out of the rain, that might be suitable. All of these have some amount of concern about traffic impacts and concern about neighbors. There are neighbors across the street from Public Works. There are neighbors surrounding Ralston Park and the impact on Ralston Park if this site was chosen. But so I think what we're looking for from this group today is recommendation on the code languages that's been drafted for council to act on. And then is there a preferred site? Council would decide what the site would be, but is there a preferred site that this group would like to recommend council consider for locating what would be overnight accommodations when you move out of the park into some other location? And that's really what we're talking about.
And also to add to that, we, at one of whichever site we end up using, we will be providing the porta potties and a wash station
And a trash can.
In a trash.
and a trash, yes.
Yeah. And so the city will incur some costs. Those are going to be relatively minor for those services, but we're probably at around $10,000 a year to provide a porta pot and hand washing and garbage pickup and containers. So there will be a cost for that.
I have a question again, I'm sorry. Is it possible to utilize more than one site?
Possible, yes, but potentially more challenging in terms of the need to clean the site.
Sure.
So as we talk about each of those sites, there are uses during the daytime. People park in the parking lot. You've got court and city hall functions. You've got public works functions. You've got other people using Ralston Park during the day and transit stops, and people do wait, under that cover to catch the bus. And so each of those sites will have to be cleaned up every morning to make sure that they are prepared for regular operations. And that'll be a public works effort. So the more sites you have, the more cost you have to maintain them.
So whatever site is utilized, the folks participating in that usage could be there from 6 o'clock in the evening on, but they would need to have all their items packed up and ready to go and be out of that usage area by 7 a.m.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's
Thank-
correct. It's
thank you.
not, and it's not providing a camp.
No.
It's not providing a home, but it is providing a place where people can find shelter and protection from the elements. And that's really, without a service provider, that's really about all we can do.
Right, ultimately getting a third-party service provider would be, of course, the best thing.
Yeah, it would be.
Would it be possible to, that main parking lot that you were talking about where the cars could come in and hit the tents, could we put a fence around that? I've seen
I-
these white,
I think
Plastic
the
fences.
challenge with fencing around that, around any of the sites becomes no ability to see what's happening inside the fence. And there is liability to the city in terms of the implication that we have provided a safe place to sleep. And if you get bonked on the head and your cell phone taken, that's not a safe place for you. So you have this competing challenge of the people who stay there, you would like to be able to have some privacy. And that's what a fence would do. But with the inability for law enforcement, for emergency service providers to get access to that site, you worry about whether or not people are going to be truly safe from other people staying there.
I was thinking more of the neighbors that would object.
I think
Fence would hide it.
I understand that that the fence would hide it, but it hides a multitude of things, and that's a challenge. Again, I think where that would work better would be if there was a service provider providing a managed camp. So I think you went to the Rogue Retreat. So you've got Rogue Retreat who has someone on site in that tent camp, in that facility 24/7.
Camp host.
You have a camp host there who is serving a little security in addition to a little case management and a little help, a multitude of functions in that. But part of what we saw at the tent camp was that camp host was making sure people were not abusing each other. They weren't stealing somebody else's shopping cart or sleeping bag or any of their items out of their tent, right? Without someone managing that camp, we have no ability to ensure that security for the people or for their things. And I think it's important to recognize if you're homeless and you've got a spare pair of socks, that's an important, critical ownership issue. And you don't want somebody to steal your socks, right? That's a very minor issue for a lot of people. But if you're homeless, that's a critical lifeline for you. And I think that's one of the challenges without a service provider who's going to manage that creates the problem.
The other component is that all of these places are overnight accommodations, which means that they're intended to go back to their original use during the daytime. And so fencing off a parking lot creates its own challenge of turning it back into a parking lot when it's supposed to be used for a parking lot during the day. So are there chains that can go across driveways to provide safety so that if cars don't enter from the driveways, that's a removable option for the parking lot, but it's still ultimately a parking lot until it's used for overnight accommodations.
That specific parking lot, if you're talking about the one across from City Hall, that's a wonky parking lot anyways to get through and to maneuver when there's a lot of cars in there. It's just not an easy parking lot to navigate because it's got a kind of an in and an out, and that would be very difficult, I think, on that one.
Yeah. I also think the parking spaces are not big enough to accommodate an RV, for example. They would accommodate a car sleeper, but an RV would end up taking multiple spaces, and I think then minimizing the number of spaces that would be available for a number of vehicles. And we've looked at other sites. There's a parcel across the street from the wastewater treatment plant, but it is not ideal. It's not close to any services. The transit could get there, yes, but it's across the street from the wastewater treatment plant, and that brings its own set of unique challenges, shall we say. So those were things that we looked at and talked about, but kind of had to rule out for environmental issues. So. Questions, comments?
Yeah, I had a question or just a comment on the locations. I like the Oak Street and also the side by City Hall. I like those two. I would hate to do two because, as Kim said, then that creates, or someone said that it creates two different, I guess, places where we're going to have to spend money as far as washing station and the bathroom and all of that. But those two look like the best, even though there's not a ton of space on either one. I think with both of them, it seems to give a pretty good amount. But I definitely like the Oak Street. one.
I guess the question I have about those sites is if we have car campers and then we have, say, someone who brings a tent type situation, would the car campers then have a designated parking where they would line up their cars, say, on those side streets? How would that?
Yeah, I
work?
think, frankly, we have not been looking as much at car campers. Um, if you recall, our original issue here was to address language that we had in our parks code that said you couldn't sleep in a park. And we didn't have any place identified where you could sleep on public property. The Maple Street site could probably have people park along Maple Street overnight. Oak Street does not have parking on that side of the street. And the side streets there don't really have space either and are budding residential properties. So I think not the best choice there. The Maple Street parking could be on, I don't know what time the liquor store closes. I know there are a lot of people in and out of there until they close. Both sides of the street could be used, but again, it would be overnight and moving again in the morning. If that's the site for tent camping, then also would be where there would be a porta pot, hand washing and garbage. So the ability to attend to that, even if your car camping would be workable.
Thank you.
Sure.
Kelly, can you put the map back up on the Maple Street one? Does anybody else need to see any one of the maps for other sites?
Yeah, can you flip over to the Oak Street also? Are they about the same? I see 12 feet and I didn't pay attention to the first one.
They're about the same width. There is different impediments on the Maple Street one that they'd have to work around for signage and a landscape hedge and then the stairs. For the
Okay.
Oak Street one, one of the criteria while we were trying to narrow down locations was not to be have an adjacency to residential. And with the Oak Street one, it is across Oak, but there are residential units directly across the street from that site. Maple is by commercial area, and then the parking lot and Holiday Station don't have direct adjacency to residential.
Yeah.
I guess a concern I would have on the Oak Street is the heavy traffic of large trucks and vehicles that would be going by and any safety concerns that could cause for citizens on camping on the sidewalks there. Also, a lot of folks who experience homelessness have a lot of trauma and loud noises such as the large trucks going by and a lot of things like that could be very triggering for a lot of folks. I'm just saying that might not be the most peaceful environment. Not that that's a factor, but I'm just saying that, that constant heavy traffic, loud noise, all those things could be of some level of concern. I know there's been more than one unfortunate incident in our city over the history where a person has gotten too close to a sidewalk and actually, unfortunately, lost their life under a truck. And so that it would just be a concern for safety somehow if maybe there would be some way to put up, I don't want to say a barrier, but, some, I don't know, sawhorses or cones or just something that would bring attention at night to any campers just to make sure they wouldn't lose their bearing and get too close to a really busy street.
Right. Very valuable concern.
guess I'm just going to talk a lot
Yes,
tonight.
keep going.
Anybody who knows me knows I talk a lot anyway. So the concern for the Maple Street location might be probably the proximity to a couple area businesses, which are fairly popular in our city, maybe in the evening. So that I'm just wondering the coming and going of the traffic from the storefront locations there, if that would create a conflict or if there's any other things going on at the park across the street there on the Ralston Park, if that would create some type of, again, concerns for folks. I don't know. If we could have the perfect scenario, and there isn't one, I realize, but if there would be a way to utilize that parking lot for maybe car camping, probably not RVs, because those might be too big for that particular area. That might be a whole nother conversation in itself, where those would be best parked. But if we could have car camping, say, in that one parking lot, and then some type of tent camping area set up on one of these other sidewalk areas. I don't know, but again, we have time and resources and all those things to consider, so. Right.
And Michelle, we've kind of limited the discussion at this point to the protecting the public parks, camping and all that. Obviously, an issue we're going to have to address is the car camping, and that just as in the future, I mean, what I'm seeing in some cities and the discussions going on are a lot of that, you know, being allowed in private parking lots with limitations, you know. Yeah, you can let them be in that parking lot, but you have to provide some kind of service. You have to provide, you know, somewhere to go to clean up, to use the restrooms and all of that. And that's what some communities are doing. And again, that's getting fleshed out in compliance with the federal Ninth Circuit cases and that kind of stuff. And I have no doubt that we'll be continuing to discuss that issue specifically as we go forward. It's not like we're choosing to ignore it. We are, it's you know, we're taking these one bite at a time to the best we can. So.
Well, and I think our existing code and the Episcopal Church showed it last year. Our existing code would allow a church to have car camping in their parking lot. They do have to provide a restroom facility, hand washing, garbage, but that's really all that they're required to do. I will note that our former fire marshal wanted us to also require carbon monoxide detectors, because as people run their cars, you have fumes. We didn't, I think, go there, but thought that was probably a good idea. Suggested the fire department provide those. But so far, that was the only church that has opened that up, and it was a relatively temporary process. So that's available. I know that in some communities, churches have provided micro shelters on their parking lots, or a church that owns a piece of property has put micro shelters or tiny homes in their lots, or has worked with the community to find a piece of land where those things can go. We have not seen anybody in Lebanon who's wanting to do that, but I think we would be open to that as a possibility for anybody who's got a parking lot and wants to provide that. I know that is an issue. I know that there are a lot of people sleeping in cars and in RVs, and they most of the time are doing that in a pretty quiet, pretty subtle way.
And kind of getting back to the location, I guess what this committee would, should or could do is either, you know, kind of say, hey, this is where we propose it is, or here's the options, here's what we see as the pros and cons. I mean, you know, ultimately it is the city council's decision. One of the questions I had, and Jason, is what among those different locations, which one provides or could provide an opportunity to have additional protection from the elements, such as something, some kind of I don't know what to call it, I don't want to say tarp, but something to keep off the rain and the snow and that kind of stuff. Is that, and again, everything has a cost, but what could potentially be available as far as providing some more protection from the elements other than just being out in the open?
Yeah, I think the only one of those locations that kind of touches on that would be the Holiday Station, because there's existing structure there. There would be an opportunity to improve those. The rest of the locations are just pretty open.
Well, and I think the rest, again, the parking lot has to go back to parking during the day because there are vehicles parked there. The space along Maple Street in front of City Hall, anything that would be put up would have to be taken down because there's business, both City Hall and the Lynn County Court that's upstairs, where we have a lot of people coming in and out of the building during the course of a day. And so the Oak Street would be a location where potentially some, are they easy ups? Is that what they're called? See, I don't ever do the soccer thing. Where shelter, and some easy ups could go up that people could then go under, whether it's with a tent or just a sleeping bag, but you would have some protection from above, and probably would not need to be taken down because they would be along the fence where they would not be in the way of other, right, not blocking the sidewalk, not blocking business.
I think there's a lot of challenges with that though, as well, as far as anchoring and keeping them safe for passing motorists in a windstorm, things like that.
Yes.
That would have to be
And
considered.
making sure people don't trip over guy wires and that kind of thing, but
And again, I think maybe I phrased the question wrong. I mean, I was thinking more of like a permanent covering of some kind, just, again, we don't have the funding for it, I get that. But I mean, of those, if we somehow had the funding and we're able to provide a place for people to go that also has a cover somehow over the top, would all the options that we're talking about have that availability, just dependent on finding the resources?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, depends on how much money, right? It always comes down to that. So naturally, the easiest one would be the one with the existing awning. And probably the cheapest.
I will say, Paul has signed on to the Oregon Mayor's Association letter to the state seeking funding to every community to support homeless services. If the legislature would provide that funding, it would go a long ways towards improving the services we could provide. And we're, I would say, cautiously optimistic and hopeful that there would be at least some funding coming. In addition, the League of Oregon Cities is trying to put together a list of capital equipment that would be needed. We're putting in for a sleeping trailer and a bathroom, a portable bathroom / shower or laundry. It's like a bathroom and shower facility with a washer dryer at one end of it. That could be placed somewhere in the community or moved around the community and made available. Those would probably be one-time grants, but would be, again, helpful to provide a service that does not currently exist. And then it would just be a matter of if we could get more ongoing resources, then we start opening the door for shelter or even what they're talking about is even targeting money to help, say, acquire land for a tiny house village or acquiring land for an affordable housing complex of some kind, cottage clusters or something along those lines that need some help with either acquisition or infrastructure improvements. All of those would be available under that Oregon Mayor's Association funding request. So that's, we're working with the League of Oregon Cities on that to try and get those funds available. So I don't know if this group wants to make any recommendation on the ordinances in terms of recommending council adopt them or not adopt them or make amendments. if we could look at that as one issue and then look at a recommended location as another issue.
I was doing homeless research, right?
Yeah.
Have these been adopted by this council yet?
No, they have not. So it's for this committee to recommend this language that would go to city council.
Okay. Well, I would move that we recommend that these be approved by the, or forwarded to the council for approval.
Second,
Okay.
did I hear a second or not?
We thought you did.
Thought you were seconding it.
Oh, I was just
Denise
asking
said
for a
she-
second, but I will second it too. As chairman, I can second, so I'll second it. Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the motion passes and we will forward that on to city council. Now we need to discuss go ahead.
Melissa Egan has raised her hand. I didn't know she was still in the meeting.
Yeah,
Is
I
there,
don't see her.
Hey there. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm on Zoom instead of with you. But so I represent Community Services Consortium, and I just wanted to add for the record that our leadership hasn't had a chance to look at the documents because they were, most recent draft today. So I can't go on the record as endorsing anything. I just wanted to mention that.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Yep, and I'm happy to have my organization submit comments at a later date, if that would be helpful for the process.
Yeah, they'll have an opportunity at city council when this comes before city council, and then the case can be made at that point.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so next up, do we want to recommend a particular site? Or do we want to recommend two sites? Is it something that we want to do? Either way.
I feel that none of them are really ideal.
I agree, but we don't have a choice.
We have to do with what we got. And I would say the Holiday Station and the Maple Street would probably be the lesser of all evils. Maybe the Public Works.
Yeah, I'm still for the Public Works and City Hall, 2 locations.
So 3 out of the 4 locations have been mentioned. Do we want to remove the parking lot on Park Street from contention and bring forth the other 3?
I think so. I think that parking lot is just a non-starter, really. Other than the fact it's close by the City Hall. And if we're looking at car camping, which the gal from the Episcopal Church said, they're looking at possibly doing something in their lot, and that would take that particular piece of the puzzle for us. So that's a possibility too.
So just to throw it out there, would the motion for somebody to make be to move forward with a recommendation for Holiday Station, Maple Street, and Public Works as potential locations for council to consider?
I think
Somebody
so.
would need to make-
Yeah.
Does somebody want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion. Make a motion to send to the City Council the Maple Street location, the Oak Street location, and the Holiday Park. I think that's what you called it, Holiday Park, Holiday Station.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to approve those 3 locations to go to city council. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, I guess. Forget I'm on the committee. I'm
You
not used
are.
to voting.
How did Denise vote? I couldn't hear.
She voted aye.
Okay. Okay, the motion passes and we'll move those 3 on and the sleeping area document also to city council. And at that time, then the public will have opportunity to comment and come in and discuss it more.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
I was wondering, when's the budget situation start?
We start working on the budget February, March timeframe.
I think we should at least consider some kind of funding to back up, some construction of a dormitory or a safe house or something. That because right now we're struggling with, we don't have any money to do anything with. And put it in the budget and let the voters have a voice.
So my recommendation would be when the city council discusses this, you raise the issue of the council pursuing voter-approved general obligation bonds to build a structure. And then the council can consider that. That would not be part of the budget proposal because that is a separate item that would require a separate property tax levy to fund it and requires voter approval. I think the other half of that is how are you going to fund operating it and how do you see operating it? And again, without a third party stepping forward saying they would operate something if we had it and the city would not be on the hook for operating costs, then you start talking about if the city was funding that operation, it's coming from the general fund and that there are not general fund dollars available to do that. So I think you want to think about where that funding, how that matches up. And if we had a service provider who wanted to staff it and operate it, that would potentially make going to the voters for bonded debt an easier thing. We will partner with X who will staff and provide case management, mental health, addiction services, whatever services they're going to provide. If you provide Y amount of money to build a structure, and then that would send staff kind of down the path of what structure, how big, what would it cost to start structuring that discussion. So that's where I think you want to think about how much we would be asking the taxpayers to
I
support.
think Albany's putting in tiny houses. They're at least doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not doing anything. So.
But that's an organization doing that. That's not the actual city. They may be partnering with the city, but the city itself, and Albany's a lot bigger and has a lot bigger budget than we do also.
Yeah, I
So,
understand.
Well, and I think the Albany share is coming from a grant. What the city of Albany is putting forward is
So
coming
that's
from a
always a
grant.
possibility, to go for a grant of some kind to help. But,
And I will say, there are grants from the state for facilities. There have been grants from the state, for example, to buy hotels and turn them into transitional housing areas. But every place that those have been done where the city, for example, applies for the grant to buy the hotel, but there is a partner that is turning that hotel into the transitional living facility, staffing it, providing case management, all the rest of that. And again, with nobody in the community stepping up saying, if only we had the money to buy a building or to buy a piece of land where we could put some tiny homes, I think we would be happy to say, okay, how do we structure that? How do we go to the state? How do we go to Replicate, who's been very good about getting money for the Lebanon community, to get a grant for making that acquisition happen? But we just haven't had anybody coming in who has said they would do that.
Some of the estimates, I mean, and I know they're just estimates, but I mean, some of the things I've seen across the state and across the country are anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000 per person per year, just for a shelter. So, you know, the cost can get, you know, that's after it's built, right? That's just for staffing and all of that. So, you know, what we're talking about in something like that is not a small endeavor. No. Right?
Oh. Yeah, Melissa, you have your hand up?
Yes,
I
hey
didn't
there.
see that.
I just wanted to add that Carol Davies, who spoke at the beginning of the meeting, and her organizational partner, Stacy Bartholomew, would be great people to invite to learn about partnering with an organization. And it is true, they did have the Vim and Vigor and nonprofit organizing on the ground. And then she offered to come and speak with you about it. So I do think you could learn a lot from the way, and it's entirely possible that they could partner with you, since they've been very successful in getting federal, state, and city funding for their land as well as donations. So you guys would learn so much from a presentation with them. It would be well worth some of your time. Just want to throw that out there.
Thank you.
Yep.
We have anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, it's getting a little bit late, so let's go ahead and then adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for coming and attending. And I don't know, I guess we're about done with this committee then, probably. Correct?
Yeah. We'll see after council, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yes,
That's true.
I think
Good.
so.
Okay.
Yes, with the recommendations from the ad hoc committee regarding the ordinances, that was the prime objective of the ad hoc committee. So the next step is for staff to circle back and create a work session for council to disclose what occurred at the ad hoc committee level, and then present the ordinances based off of those recommendations for council. So unless the council after that presentation identifies additional tasks to be done by the ad hoc committee, I believe that this would be the last meeting.
I would say so. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a good night,
Thank you.
and the meeting
you.
is adjourned.
Thank you.